folks. Hard hats, lunch pails, steel toe boots.
Anything short of a championship this year is a failure.
Look at this boomer right here.
You've just got so much talent here.
Somebody said we need to apologize for Jaylen.
Can I call the John? What are we apologizing for? What did we say? What did we do?
All right, back with another episode. This is the Celtics Postgame Show. Celtics once again find a way to get it done. The second night of a back-to-back here at TD Garden. Well, the Celtics are now, believe it or not, Sherrod, 16-0 at TD Garden, beating the Toronto Raptors 120-118, surviving down the stretch there after the Toronto Raptors went on a heck of a run to start that fourth quarter, an 18-3 run that really made things interesting, right, Sherrod, for a few minutes as they held on to a lead before the Celtics countered back with what I'm going to call an all-hands-on-deck approach in this one. But, of course, the standout for sure is what Jaylen Brown did right out of the gate, right, making 4 straight three-pointers in that first quarter, setting the tone there. But the Toronto Raptors got right back into it. We'll break it all down. He's Sherrod Blakely. I'm Josue Pavon, coming at you from TD Garden. Bobby Main's going to check in with us in a little bit. And before he gets on his I was right about Kornet speech, soapbox, if you will, Sherrod. Give me some other takes from this game, because obviously Kornet had a lot to do with it with his 20-point performance, but it was a much more to it than that, man. What did you see, especially in that fourth quarter?
I think you saw a lot of different things, and again, the takeaways from this game are abundant. You've got obviously the way that Jaylen Brown was able to set the tone, as you pointed out. You had lots of good minutes from Luke Kornet. You got Kata had some decent minutes as well. Sam Hauser did some really non-Hauser-like things. Had that great block shot. That was was a really big play. Yeah. Drew Holiday missed some really critical free throws down the stretch, but he had some moments sprinkled in throughout the game where he was really good. You just go down the line, and pretty much everyone that the Celtics put on the floor actually contributed. And I give Joe Mazzulla credit for doing some things that I don't think he was comfortable doing, but I think he realized, I got to do this in order for us to get out of this thing with a win. You know, where he went at one point late in the game where they needed to make sure that they gave themselves a great chance at the very end to get that ball out of the hands of Toronto in case, Pascal missed that last free throw, which he did. You bring in Luke and you bring in our good friend O'Shea Brissett, who were able to keep that ball. Luke with the great tip out as time expired. And you just start going down the line of guys who saw action. And it was clear as day that this was an all-hands-on-deck type of game. But let me be absolutely crystal clear. I'm not feeling all that much better about this one than I did against the Detroit Pistons. And simply because
24 hours ago. Yeah.
Simply because the best player on your team, which tonight was Jaylen Brown, he had great numbers at the end of the night, but there were some stretches that were really bad. I mean, I think he had 6-7 turnovers. Yeah. And you give him a little bit of grace because this Toronto team is better than the team that they face, and their defense is better than the Pistons defense. But that being said, you're hoping to see Jaylen, you're hoping to see Jason when they have these opportunities where they basically have to put the band on their shoulders, that they play a little bit more efficiently because they need that. But again, this was a game where so many folks stepped up, not named Jaylen Brown, that as much as his 31 points and 5 dimes and rebounds were impactful, because they were, the difference makers in this game were the Luke Kornets, the Derek Whites. Those are the guys that really pushed the needle, if you will, and got the Celtics this win.
Yeah, man. Derek White was on that. Look, let's just finish this and come out here with a win, because he didn't like the way that fourth quarter was playing out. And those last few minutes, it was on both ends of the floor. Huge steal one end, or at least knocking the ball loose for Hauser to pounce on it. I mean, look, that type of defensive pressure, I felt like, really triggered the Raptors to making some mistakes or missing some key layups down the stretch. But Derek White making those huge plays and also those layups, definitely made a difference. I thought Drew Holiday as well. But yeah, I mean, Jaylen Brown finishing with 7 turnovers in this one. It certainly gave the Toronto Raptors life, I think, in that fourth quarter, where you had McDaniels, which essentially pretty much after Jaylen Brown dunked on him, he went off for like 10 points in like those 4 or 5 minute stretch where the Raptors went off to kick off that fourth quarter, 18-3 run. How did that happen, Sherrod? And what does that say about this team? I mean, obviously it's tough when you don't have Tatum in the lineup, you don't have Kristaps Porzingis, two of the guys that has my top 2 All-Stars 24 hours ago when we were having that conversation. But what did you see with the other guys? Obviously the second unit as well, which we have Joe Mazzulla. He has we have a clip from Joe talking about the second unit.
Well, the thing about the Celtics in that stretch, I thought it was more about Toronto than them, to be honest with you. And remember, this Toronto team, you've got a guy in Pascal Siakam who's an all-star. OG, Anunoby is a guy that has been in that conversation before. Pirtle, is a good defender. Scotty Barnes is the best player on the team, and he gave him 30, 10, and 5 tonight. Yeah. So you start – and Dennis Schroeder was the FIBA World Champion MVP. So they have guys who are good players in this league. And at some point, good players on decent teams are going to make a run. And I thought they did. But the Celtics, to me, this was a game where, again, when you don't have a guy like Jason Tatum or you're playing a game where you don't have a Jaylen Brown, you can get through without one of your core guys for a game or 2 or 3 even. But at some point, you're going to have a night where their absence is going to hurt you. I thought not having a Tatum, I thought we felt a little bit of that in this game. Not having a Porzingis, I thought we felt that in this game. Not having Al Horford. You're talking 3 of your top 5, top 6 players that you did not play, that you not have available. And over the course of time, that stuff adds up. You're going to lose a game or 2 when you don't have all those pieces. You may win a lot of them, but you're going to lose one because of their absence. And I give the Celtics credit for finding a way to win this game when, they had plenty of excuses that many of which people would have bought into as to why they would lose. I mean, back-to-back, overtime game, you're missing your leading scorer, you're missing your second leading scorer, you're missing your Mr. Utility guy, and Al Horford, who when he starts, gives you good stuff. When he comes off the bench, gives you good stuff. And so there were plenty of excuses why they could have just simply thrown in the towel and just chalked this up to an L. But they found a way to get the win, and they're moving on, and they're hoping to finish out this calendar year on the kind of note that you want to, which is to be the best team in the NBA. At least that's where they are record-wise.
Absolutely. Luke Kornet got the start for Kristaps Porzingis. He finished with 20 points and 8 rebounds in this game, and it was a big performance, if you ask me, considering the injury, the talk with the Kada talk, which, of course, we've been doing that here on this show as well. But it's been going on across Celtics Nation, right? Guys wondering if Kada had his chance to take that spot in the depth chart, and Luke Kornet coming out with a huge performance here, starting performance, 20 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 blocks. Also played some key part in those big plays down the stretch as well. And then you also had Sam Hauser, who, like you said, man, was doing a little bit of the other stuff, but it's outside of the 3-point shooting. He connected on 3 threes in this one, but also had 9 rebounds. So I thought he made a difference as well. But the second unit, like I said, Joe Mazzulla just spoke to the media, and here's what he had to say about the second unit and the faith that he has in these guys when their names are called.
Faith increased over the last year or this season that this team can do whatever with whatever lineup you put in there.
It goes back to them. And so, like you said, no matter the lineup, we have small things we can go to. We have guys that are willing to step up. We have guys that understand it's about execution, it's about effort, and it's about toughness. So I got 1,000% faith in the entire locker room. I told them before the game, I don't care who's in, who's out, who we're playing. It doesn't matter. I know because of the DNA of the locker room, we got a chance. And I know we're always going to find, as long as effort, execution, toughness remains the same, we're always going to find small ways to affect the game, whether it's with a different set or a different defensive scheme. And like you said, we got that team does a great job of creating momentum plays. And so we let go of the rope a little bit, and they went on that 18-3 run. A lot of that stuff was stuff that you'd be willing to give up at times, Schroeder threes, McDaniel threes, but it's the and ones, it's the transition. And I thought our offense bogged us down, and those 16 turnovers is kind of what kept them in on that. But the poise to be able to just execute is kind of what we're looking to build.
Yeah. I mean, Joe's spot on. I mean, the thing about this team is they don't use anything that those on the outside will look at as a shortcoming as a reason to be less than great. You look at every game they play, they compete. It's hard to find a game other than maybe that Orlando game where they got smashed earlier this year, where you felt as though they weren't competing. And that to me is that's part of being a champion. Champions aren't going to win every game, but they damn sure going to show up and compete. And that's what the Celtics are doing night in and night out, regardless of who's out there. And we'll get more into Luke later because Bobby has to get into Luke later.
Yeah, man.
But
you already know that was his first question, I bet.
Yeah, but the thing that I really like most about Luke's game today, and this is no disrespect to Luke at all, but he looked like he belonged out there. He actually looked like he was going to be more than just a piece of furniture that you put in the living room, that you put a potted plant on, and you don't move. Luke actually made basketball plays. He looked to finish. And the thing about it, he did more than just, again, set screens. And I know that when you have a Tatum and you have those other guys in there, they're not looking for him to do that. But it's nice to see when they're shorthanded, him to do that. Because remember, it's not like this is the first game that he's been in there and Porzingis has not played. But it is the first game where he looked like he was willing to fill that void and do some Porzingis-like thing, like rim run to the basket. Be physical. Something that, again, I don't think that's necessarily comes natural to him, but he showed us a level of physicality that we have not seen much of this season. I mean, Luke had a great game. And again, on those nights when Porzingis is absent, this is the Luke Kornet I want to see. I want to see a guy who will roll to the rim. If there's a missed shot, he's not running his ass back to get back defense. If his man is down there trying to get that rebound, fight him for that rebound. Don't concede those defensive rebounds. Battle. And it was great to see Luke do that because clearly he has the ability to do that. It's just about opportunity. And on nights like this, opportunity is his for the taking. And I give him lots of props. He actually took it tonight. So good for Luke.
Yeah, 100%, Sherrod. You nailed it. I mean, listen, the plays down low, like to have the hands to get those passes in the paint, like that's not easy. And that's something that I feel like has been a work in progress with Luke. But this year, or at least in this performance, it was like instant. You know what I mean? He was fighting for those. He was getting those passes in traffic. He was fighting for positioning, and he was making those plays. With zero hesitation. That's the type of approach. When you see Luke like that, you start thinking, okay, well, how long can you keep this thing going? And it was from the first quarter until the very end, if you ask me. And he was finding ways to be effective on the defensive end of the floor as well, setting screens, but also cutting. How many times was he found down low for easy layups, and especially those putbacks. One putback in particular where he got the 3-point play, showed a little attitude in there as well. I'm telling you, man, he's been listening to what people. I mean, I'm kind of joking, but you wonder if he's been listening to what people have been saying.
Make no mistake about it, man. He's feeling that K to Heat.
He felt it, right?
He's feeling that K. He sees what's happening. He sees, the guy that plays his position, who's playing in games, and you're not. And yeah, you've got, you're not 100% healthy, but I'm not convinced that every single one of those DNP CDs that Luke has racked up lately was because he was hurt. Yeah. I think Luke could have got out there sooner than this. But to his credit, and again, it goes back to what I said earlier, I want him to recognize opportunities and make the most of them. You're not going to get this opportunity when you got a full cast of Celtics available, where you got Al available and Porzingis and Tatum and all those guys. You're not going to get a 20-point game out of Luke on those nights. But when 2, maybe 3 of those guys are not around, Luke can do a little bit more rim running. Luke can do a little bit more banging on the glass because they're going to need that. This is the blueprint for Luke when one of the core bigs or both of the core bigs, Al and Porzingis, are out. This is the type of approach you have to take to the game. This is the type of impact you need to be looking to make. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to get 20 and 8 every time, but damn, at least don't be that piece of furniture on the elbow that Tatum is going around to go to the rim. Actually be a basketball player, which is who you are. That's what you do. So do it.
Sherrod, you should just see a big chair just in the middle of the paint.
I'm just saying, and Luke is. This is the thing. Luke is better than that, and that's, for me, that's been a frustrating thing about him for the most part. It's just that he seems very comfortable with just setting screens and every now and then grabbing a long rebound, or when a big he's guarding is shooting a 3. He'll step out. He'll stay in the paint, and he'll do that weird jump in the middle of the paint thing, which again, that has, I hate that.
That used to drive me crazy. Yeah, I can tell.
It drives me crazy because you're not defending. It's just, I hate that. But anyway, kudos to Luke, and we'll talk more about Luke certainly when Bobby gets on here because I want Bobby to take a victory lap on this one because he's been, you know, the way I am about Marcus Smart, he is actually worse.
Right.
With Luke.
Okay, that I agree with. But before you keep this going, man, you're gonna if you keep this talk up, we're gonna reach apology cam territory with
Bobby. Hell no.
You know how Bobby exactly. So
it's one game.
Tone it down. Exactly. It's one game. We got to keep that energy when he checks in. because if we don't, he's going to be like, oh, you guys all owe me an apology. And so
because here's the thing. The reason we started talking more about Keita is because Keita did it in more than one game. He put up 2 double-doubles in like 3 or 4 games.
Exactly. You know what, Sherrod? Look what happened tonight, right? No Porzingis, but I love the fact that it's not all or nothing, right? It's not it has to be Luke or Keita. Keita got something too, right? 15 minutes, some production, you know, continue to progress as the young center that he is. I mean, I don't think that was ever the conversation. Like, oh, one of these guys has to play and you have to completely bury the other. I just felt like others, Keita was creeping up, you know, not to say that Luke Kornet needed to be benched immediately, but like you said, he was putting it together on a consistent level. And it was a short term, you know, little run, especially throughout that West Coast road trip. However, it still raised some eyebrows.
Yeah, and I give Joe Mazzulla credit for just picking his spots with those two, because that's going to be a challenge for him to decide which of those two to lean on more so than the other on and it will be a game by game type thing.
Definitely.
But I like the fact that Joe he did what I think smart coaches do, and that is use your bench on a back-to-back, particularly an overtime back-to-back, and on a night when you're missing 3 of your top 5, top 6 players. It was good, you know, to see, you know, O'Shea out there doing some things. And again, a lot of the stuff that O'Shea, you know, did out there was not the sexy, glamorous stuff, but keeping balls alive, diving for a loose ball, going out of bounds. And yeah, it wound up in Toronto's hand, but just the effort that you were you need that on nights like this where you may not be on the top of your game, because whether you played an overtime game or whether you beat a team by 40, playing back-to-back nights, that second game, you're probably not going to be as sharp as you want to be. You're probably not going to be as crisp running your stuff at either end of the floor. You know, we talked about Derek White and just how he was clutch for them. You look at his final numbers. I mean, Derek, this was a crappy game for him in terms of shooting the ball. It was like 5 for 17 or something like that. So it's not like he
5
was
for 19.
5 for 19. He wasn't killing it in terms of shot making, but he had 7 dimes, 5 boards, 3 steals, couple blocks. He was finding ways to contribute in other ways than scoring. And Jaylen, yes, he had the 7 turnovers, and we hate that. But give Jaylen his props. He also was 11 for 16, was 5 for 6 on threes. They couldn't guard him. Jaylen could have gone for 50 tonight if he were really, really, really looking to be a scorer. But I love the fact that Jaylen showed some restraint in this game. He actually showed a level of understanding what he needed to do to win, and not necessarily win the scoring game or win the high production game. You know, that pass to Luke late in the game was huge. That was maybe one of the most clutch passes Jaylen has made as a Celtic when you look at time and score, and the fact that he could have played that. He could have scored that.
I was going to say, you're just happy he didn't go 11 for 31.
Yeah,
like his teammate last night.
Yeah. So I mean, and you know, and your boy Tatum, I mean, you know, he's missing it with the ankle, you know, this game. So maybe the ankle was bothering him a little bit. It didn't look like it though. It didn't look like his movement was an issue last night. It looked like the way the ball was moving when it left his hands was the problem last night. But this was
he adjusted just like Jaylen did in this one.
Right.
Find the open guy.
And Jay, to me, it's part of Jaylen's growth. Jaylen is not a natural passer. Tatum is not a natural passer, but they understand that has to be part of what you do at this level if you want to win a championship. You know, as much as we just revere all the things that Michael Jordan has done as a scorer, some of the greatest plays he made were passes that were iconic passes that people, when they go through the Jaylen Brown, the Michael Jordan, trilogy of all the great things he's done. If they go through like his top 10 plays, you're going to find 2 or 3 passes in that mix. Yeah. And I think Tatum and
Paxton.
Yeah. And Peyton, you know, and Jaylen and Jason, I think, are slowly but surely, you know, starting to weave along those same lines, but make no mistake about it, they get buckets. That is why they are max players, because they score the rock. But they understand that you're going to have to drop some dimes in the process if you're going to be a great player, if you're going to be a great champion.
Absolutely. And you know what? You look at the talent around them. They never had these great things, right? Guys like Drew, guys like Kristaps. I mean, he wasn't available in this one, but just the overall approach, you just see such a difference in these guys when it comes to down the stretch and knowing that they don't always have to put the team on their backs.
Right. And remember that these guys were among the best players in the nation when they came out of high school. They both went to college for 1 year. And so it's not like they had this long period of time in college where they're playing with all these great players. And so for them, it's just like they've always been him. They know what it's like to be him. Right. And now you're asked them to be him with some help. And it's like, I'm going to try that, but I don't know how that's going to look. And they have been trying, and it has not looked pretty. This season is the best they've looked in being hybrid talents who can not only score the rock, but also get others involved. Tatum's growth has been a little bit, I think, quicker and more, I think, noticeable than Jaylen's. But again, that's not a surprise because Tatum is the face of the franchise, and Jaylen is next to the face of the franchise. And that's no shade on Jaylen. Jaylen's a hell of a player and is deserving of being an all-star this year. To me, that's not even questioned. But Tatum's just a different kind of dude. But it's good to see on nights like this, when Jaylen does have the center stage and he has to be the guy to lead them, that he figures out ways to impact winning. And again, he scored 31 points or something like that?
31, yep.
But to me, the most impressive play he made all night long was that pass to Luke late in the game, because that's a pass that I don't know if there's any other season that Jaylen has been in the NBA where in that situation he would have made that play. And to me, the fact that he had the wherewithal to do that in that moment, it says a lot about his growth. I mean, this was a definite one of those. This is Jaylen Brown's growth at this point in his career type of game. The 7 turnovers, again, I cringe at them. I hate that, especially when you look at they had, I think, 16 as a team. And he had damn near half of their turnovers. That's not how this should work. It's just not how this should work. But give him credit for figuring out ways to impact winning outside of just being a guy that gets buckets.
I mean, you look at each leader, right, in Tatum and Brown, and what are the biggest flaws that we've seen in the past few years with each of them, right? For me, with Tatum, it's been those nights when he's going, he has those awful shooting nights, the 3 for 18, historically bad shooting nights, and he typically responds from those after that. But normally throughout the stretch of that game, you don't see him adjust to what the game is telling him to do, right? Nowadays, it's completely different. Like you said, he's finding other guys, he's finding other ways, he's seeing how he can make things way more easier on himself if he's able to read the defense the right way and set up guys and all that good stuff, right? And now Jaylen's also doing the same thing. But what was his biggest flaw a couple of years ago, right? The turnovers, right? Or even Game 7, the infamous, big turnover machine that he was in the most important game of the season. And yeah, in this game, similar with the turnovers, right? However, his approach changed. He knew that he couldn't or he shouldn't be the guy to always take the block, or he knew that there's other guys available. He saw Derek White down low for good looks, or reading the defense and knowing exactly what the right play to make. I think that's the part of their growth that's really going to take this team to another level. That's easily the biggest reason why this team is probably 16-0 at TD Garden. You know what I mean? Like, they had the best home record, and I wonder what that record will look like at the end of the season, because I could see this team dropping maybe a few, but not a whole lot by the end of the year. Yeah,
and they're figuring out how to be great consistently, and that's the mark of a champion in the making. How can you play at an elite level more times than not? How can you position yourself to win games when you're maybe not at the top of your game, but damn it, you're going to compete and give yourself a chance to win? They're becoming really, really good at that.
Absolutely. And like we said, man, Luke Kornet, big night for Luke. 20 points in this one. Got the nod for Kristaps Porzingis, and he just hit the podium. And here's a clip of what Luke Kornet had to say just moments ago. All right, we're going to get that in a little bit. Ahmed just told me, but in a couple of minutes, we'll cue that up. But yeah, man, big performance out of Luke. Especially coming after the injury and a lot of time off. He just looked fresh out there. Like you said, he looked like he belonged. and was certainly worthy of the post-game podium in this one. And it's funny because Bobby turned to me and asked me that. I'm like, if he hits that 20-point mark, he's going up there. And make no mistake, of course, there he is.
And he deserves it. He absolutely deserves it. I mean, he deserves all the praise for what he did tonight. And no one should be, throwing shade or anything like that, because he went out there and did the job. But let's not get it twisted. This was one game, and Luke has had plenty of opportunities to do this before. And for whatever reason, it just didn't work out for him. So give him his props for what he did, but let's not act as if, this is something that happens all the time and that, Luke, hasn't had opportunities before, and this was his first real opportunity to do this, and so he made the most of it. No, he's had opportunities before, but this night, for whatever reason, it all came together for him, and he absolutely deserves the credit and props for that happening. So good for Luke, man, and good for Bobby, because Bobby takes a lot of strays, man. He takes a lot of strays for sticking with his boy Luke, especially the way, Kata was just killing it in limited minutes. While Luke was just, Luke was doing what Luke do, no more for, instead of putting a lick on somebody, he was no more for limit squares. But tonight was a
which
different
is a report from Bobby, by the way. But yeah.
Exactly. But again, he deserves all the credit for what he did tonight. I'm happy for Luke. This was a really good game by Luke.
All right, here's Luke at the podium after this win, after a huge 20-point performance here at TD Garden.
I'm sure you've been in situations where you dress, but you knew I'm not going to play. Like, you just. I have, yeah. Yeah, I'm just not going to play. I'm going to go, I'm going to prepare myself. But when you go from, let's say, not playing against the Lakers to starting and playing 30 minutes, how does that change your preparation? That has to excite you and the rest of the guys to know that everyone's eventually going to get their chance.
Yeah, that's like I've played for enough years to know, like, that's how it's going to happen. Like, there's going to be nights where people aren't playing and, like, you're just going to have to be available. It is kind of funny that that's how it, like, worked out. And after the first 6 minutes, I was pretty exhausted. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to make it. But, yeah, you just kind of appreciate it for what it is. And, I'm not exactly sure of anybody's stats, but, like, I'm sure come San Antonio, like, if KP and Al are back playing and JT, then it's like, all right, whatever. Like, I just hope we go out and we win, and I'm fulfilling my role for that day. And I think, there's a lot of peace in just doing what you're told in a weird kind of a way, and, like, knowing what your job is and trying to do that thing well and not worrying about things that you really can't control. So, it was I don't know. You can get lost in, like, the emotions of that, but I think just focus on what your work actually is, and then taking it day by day.
Good job.
Luke definitely looked focused out there today, man. Like I said, 20 points, 8 rebounds, 3 blocks. Like you mentioned too, man. A couple loud ones that really got TD Garden going. Talk about staying ready, huh? When your name is called. That's exactly what Luke was. And I just felt like he had a little extra motivation in this one. Like he wanted to show everyone, like, hey, man, I didn't just arrive. You know what I mean? I've been around, which a lot of people didn't know. After watching this game, that this isn't his career high. He actually scored 25 points as a member of the Chicago Bulls back in 2020, which probably got the Celtics' attention, or at least before that, right? No, I think that was after the trade. But anywho, he's done this before. He scored 20 plus throughout his career before. But like you said, you want to see more consistency. Maybe not 20 plus point performances throughout the season, but just overall consistency coming off that bench.
Well, the thing is that when he plays and you talk about his game, more often than not, we find ourselves talking about, boy, he really set great screens that freed up so-and-so. And that's fine. That's important. That's a part of the game. I get it. But Luke can do more than that. And there are opportunities. And I think on nights when you don't have a Al, when you don't have a Porzingis, you don't have a Jason or a Jaylen, and he gets to play, he needs to show some of those other things because the opportunity is there. And that, for me, that's my real frustration with Luke. He's an NBA player. That's not even an issue.
Right. I think we're beyond that point.
Yeah,
right?
well, far beyond that point. But are you going to make the most of those opportunities to showcase your ability to do more than just be a screen setter? And this was one of those games where this, to me, for Luke, whenever there's 2 or 3 or 4 of the top 6, 7 guys out, and you're going to play probably more minutes, this is the blueprint of what you should do. Run the floor, be aggressive offensively, be aggressive on the offensive glass. Look, when you're setting that screen, look for them to get you the ball because they're going to do that. Play a big man's role, play above the rim. You can do that. We've seen you do that. Hell, we saw again tonight. And this is how Luke should be playing when they are giving him a more prominent role because of injuries.
How much of this falls on coaching, Sherrod? And I know we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when I felt like when you see a game like this, a shorthanded Celtics team, 2 starters, two of your better players and Tatum and Porzingis out, and you're plugging in guys who, let's face it, haven't played in a week, haven't played in 2 weeks, right? I mean, this was all hands on deck type of game. Guys that were playing meaningful minutes, including, someone like Banton who only got 2. But then you also had like Mikhailuk, someone like, who hasn't played in weeks or a month or so, and he's playing meaningful minutes in this one, right? So he's getting involved. Like how much do you put that on coaching? And the reason why I ask you that is because I'm seeing the difference in the system and how everyone is buying into it. And Jaylen Brown, who's at the podium right now, as I'm reading a quote, is saying that the coaching has been excellent this year, and that Joe has encouraged us all to think the game as opposed to thinking about the individual, right? So how much does that play a part in the Celtics team?
It's a part. And I think it's the deeper we get into the season, I think the more we start to see that kind of play out because Joe is going to go with different combinations and different players and put them in different positions to do some things, and their ability to process not so much what play was called, but just how can I make a play that's impactful for this team? And that's ultimately what this game comes down to, man. It's not even about knowing the plays and ISO and guys. It's about what can you do to impact winning. That's what it always comes down to. And, the thing about, Luke and the thing about, Lamar Stevens and Brissett and a lot of those guys that see limited action, they have a very tight window to make impactful plays. And an impactful play for them, it looks very different than one for Tatum. If you are, O'Shea Brissett, keeping a loose ball alive and tipping it out to Peyton Pritchard, that's an impactful play. For Luke, setting a good screen, rolling to the basket and being able to finish at the rim, or drawing attention, trying to finish at the rim, and you kick out to a wide open Drew Holiday for a 3. That's an impactful play. So that's the key with these guys. And I think Joe is trying to empower them to think more about how can you make impactful decisions on the floor versus how can I score? How can I set this pick? How can I drop this nice looking assist? What can you do to make an impact? That's what it ultimately comes back to with these guys.
You know who that reminds me of? I just thought of it when you were saying that because he did it tonight and he's been doing it low key throughout the season. It's now starting to pop up, and that's Sam Hauser and his rebounding ability. Yeah. Man, like he's got a knack for knowing when that ball is going to bounce, off the rim. He's really improved in that, in creating second chance opportunities, or if not, like you said, the tip back, keeping that ball alive, giving the Celtics a chance to regain another possession. Like that's the kind of stuff that Joe Mazzulla will always point out. That's the kind of stuff that he's going into the locker room being like, look, that's what I'm talking about. That's the effort plays. That's the kind of approach, every night that we have to have. And he's going to reward guys like that, and it's no coincidence why Hauser's having such a, impactful season in his stint with Boston. And of course, he got the nod for Jason Tatum in the starting lineup tonight.
Yeah. The thing about Sam, well, there's a couple things. First and foremost, he's a better all-around player than he's ever been given credit for. When you watch him play, his ability to move without the ball, which gets so underrated. The Celtics are finally utilizing him in similar fashion, the way that Doc Rivers used to use Avery Bradley early on, where Avery Bradley was in that starting lineup and he wasn't shooting anything other than layups. And those layups were coming because he was making real strong, fast, hard moves along that baseline. And Sam has that same ability. But the thing about
I was going to say, he stole Ray Allen's starting job because of that. Remember Avery Bradley that last year that Ray was in Boston?
Yeah. And we were trying to figure out how the hell are you going to put the Hall of Famer to the side, to the curb like that for this kid who can't shoot jump shots. And then lo and behold, Avery, Avery is getting like layups every game, at least 3 or 4 layups,
pissing people off. Like, who is this dude?
And a pest on defense. And then over time, he developed and has expanded his game to be a pretty decent corner 3-ball shooter. And Sam, is almost reversed, where Sam, great perimeter, long range shooter, but can you do something? Can you take advantage of all that real estate between the 3-point line and the rim? And Sam is doing a much better job of that. And defensively, Sam is not locking anybody down, but Sam does a great job of keeping himself between the rim and the defender. And he's a bigger dude than people realize. Like, it wasn't until I was talking with him, last year, and I'm standing next to him, and I'm like, dude, you kind of thick, yo. And he was just like,
right.
He just kind of looked at me funny. Like, he was just like, I'm not like, skin and bones. Well, nah, you definitely not skin and bones.
And he told us too earlier this year too. Yeah, I could fly, man. Don't be surprised. I throw it down a couple times.
He got low key bounce. I mean, when he hit the B button, he gonna bounce a little bit, but he's not like, we're not talking about Rex Chapman. We're not talking about Vince Carter. But there's no question Sam's got some bounce. And I love the fact that Sam, he's figured out different ways to help this team win. And it goes back to what I was saying, how do you impact winning? And Sam has learned very quickly that as much as the Celtics love his 3-point shooting, you are not going to live by the 3-point shot if you're gonna get playing time. He's doing great things defensively. He's making hustle plays. That block shot, I mean, that should be block. When they go through like their season highlight reel of each player, just like key plays and big plays, that should be part of Sam's highlight package, because that was a hell of a block. So again, he's doing the things that you want your role players to do. And speaking of role players, I'm not thinking about Bobby. I'm thinking about Bobby's guy, Luke. Go on, Bobby.
You want to do the transition?
Listen, lace him up, Bobby, and take your victory lap. Go ahead. He was
Bobby
good,
Manning,
man. Your guy was
Bobby
good.
Manning joins us after the Celtics win, where Luke Kornet had his game of the season: 20 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocks. You know the stat line, Bobby. What do you have to say up there on the podium?
Your boy was balling.
Yeah, he was Luke on the podium, and it took a moment to be grateful for the opportunity he got tonight. And that's something he stresses, that he gets set up in a lot of the opportunities to score well by his teammates. So he's taken on that role. He's always been someone who's talked about how he's not out there to get stats. He's out there to make the game easier for his teammates. So nothing out of the ordinary there. A lot of love from teammates talking about how funny he is, and just how helpful he is out there on the floor when he is out there. And that's something I've stressed all along. I've never been out here saying he's the best player in the world or he deserves to. Well, I made the case at the beginning of the last year they deserve to start, but
he's the best player in the world.
All I've stressed is that he's a good player. He deserves to be out there, and that as far as a third big goes, and that's what he is on this team, he's a great fit for that position, and you can win minutes with him out there, and not many teams can say that about their third center. You have Kristaps, you have Al, and on a night like tonight, and I said this, Sherrod, earlier in the season, you went out and beat the 76ers with Embiid last year with Kornet starting, and this isn't a contender here in Toronto or anything, but you got great minutes out of him tonight and a win in large part because of him. And I just don't want to hear the hate anymore about him.
Well, Bobby, you will hear the hate about him, but not tonight, because he doesn't deserve it. He deserves all the praise, all the adulation for what he did tonight. But here's the thing, Josue and I talked about this earlier. My big issue with Luke is that on nights when you don't have an Al, where you don't have a Porzingis, where you don't have a Tatum or a Brown, Luke has all what we saw tonight in his bag. And yet on those nights when opportunities to display that with no resistance, you don't have the minutes crunch that you'd have when those other guys I just mentioned are around. We don't see this. And it doesn't feel as though it's a thing where Joe Mazzulla is saying, Luke, don't you look to score. Luke, don't you go attack the glass on the offensive boards. Don't do that. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like Luke is just comfortable being that screen setter, letting Tatum or Brown, whichever one is playing, do their thing, and not assert himself more into the flow of what they're looking to do at either end of the floor. And that, for me, is the frustration. I want Luke on nights like this to do this. When you don't have a Porzingis, where you don't have an Al, they need someone to be that guy. in the front court. And he has the skills clearly to do that. It's just that, from the outside looking in, it feels as though it's more of a mental thing with Luke than a physical thing, that he's very comfortable being this screen setting, jumping in the middle of the paint when the big is shooting from the three-point line, defensive kind of guy, as opposed to what we saw tonight, which was a guy that was actively engaged at both ends of the floor, mixing it up with guys looking to block shots, catching lobs late in the game, doing the kind of things that he has the ability to do, things that frankly should be magnified more so on these type of nights when there's so many guys that normally are ahead of him in the pecking order, nowhere to be found.
Yeah, and he asserted himself early. All the touches around the rim, tip-ins, whatever it might be, being active. And as a screener, this is why I don't think a lot of people think he's good, is that the things he does are subtle. Like, he's a great screener. He's really good in that handoff game. He sets good angles. And one thing Joe talked about tonight is against the team that was switching everything, as Toronto did, especially in the second half, he makes teams uncertain. Like, do they want to put two on the ball? If he gets the ball in the pocket, he's going to make good passes and good decisions out of there. He's not going to score a ton like he did tonight, but he's always going to do little things, I think, to help the offense and the defense. Like, I know he got beat at times in this game, but he was going against a 5-out lineup for much of it. And McDaniels really got going in the fourth quarter, but Joe stayed with him because he was able to impact shots around the rim and then on offense create that indecision. So I just think, again, to go back to the Keita conversation we've had, you do have a more physically imposing player in Keita as the alternative here, but you're getting much more rock solid minutes out of Luke here. And this is, of course, abnormal for him in terms of just how great this night was. But he does all these little things night to night, and it won't be a surprise to see them keep going back to him in that role of that third center that just gives you those rock solid 5-10 minutes to spell the other guys and allow them to play a little double big with Horford and Porzingis.
Yeah, I mean, he was. Go ahead, Josue, you got it.
No, I was going to say real quick. You wonder if having those guys out, it's not a comforting factor for Luke, but knowing that I can settle in. Yeah, exactly. It's encouraging because I can settle into my offense. If I can get going a little bit, I know that there's just a short leash out there where if I'm not performing at a certain level, I'm going to be yanked and benched for the rest of the night.
Remember there was a play, Josue, in that Philly game earlier in the year where he committed an offensive foul and he just ran back to the other side of the floor knowing he was coming out.
Yeah, you didn't see him the rest of the night.
But the thing that again, and I don't want to beat this to death, but I love when Luke looks to be more than what you're expecting Luke to be. The little things that you're talking about, Bobby, he does those night in, night out, and that's great. But there are nights when he can do more than that, and this is one of those nights. And I want Luke to get to the point where he recognizes on nights like this, when you don't have an Al, where you don't have a Porzingis, you don't have a Tatum or a Brown, do more than you're capable of doing because they're going to need you to do more. And I just think there's just too many games where these opportunities present themselves and Luke doesn't maximize those opportunities. He sticks to doing what he does well, which is the little things, and that's great. But there are nights when he has an opportunity and clearly has the ability to do more than that, and that's what I want to see him do.
Yeah,
I think all year this bench has been a pleasant surprise, Josue, and tonight just another example of that. And beyond Luke, there were just so many good performances from guys. Shvee even hit a shot. You had Ben coming in.
Even Shvee hit a shot. Damn, Bobby.
Well, he hasn't been much of a contributor.
No, I know.
All year.
You're not used to seeing him out there. And plus, no, before you actually hopped on, I was saying how the all hands on deck type of game where he's getting meaningful minutes. Like that wasn't garbage time when he checked in. He only played 7, but again, these are meaningful minutes.
Right. And who made the final stop of the game, Sherrod? O'Shea Brissett rotating over.
It was a great play. It was, yeah, I mean, a great play. And then on that missed free throw, you had O'Shea and Luke, both had a hand on the ball to tip it out as time expired. So, yeah.
Right. And O'Shea finished with 7 rebounds off the bench for the Celtics, but it was Jaylen Brown's 31 points and 10 rebound performance that led the way despite the 7 turnovers. We're gonna talk about what Jaylen had to say at the podium in 1 second, just right after this quick break from our good friends over at FanDuel. Check them out if you haven't already.
Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than NFL. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including you got spreads, you got your player props, you got over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
All right, that's right. FanDuel, FanDuel.com/Boston. Celtics beat the Raptors 120-118. Bobby, you had a chance to see Jaylen Brown up there at the podium. What do you have to say about this game, and what else did he have to say about the second unit? It seemed like he said a lot.
Yeah, I asked him about the playmaking because this has been just a revelatory month for his passing and his ability to lead the offense here. And he said at the beginning of the year, this coaching staff didn't look at him as a playmaker, as an initiator. So he had to come out and prove himself, and that's something he aimed to do. He had his ups and downs early, of course, trying to do that. And now he said more recently the coaching staff has put him in some positions to succeed there. So he gave him credit for that. And, you know, that's something he's talked about for years now, is his desire to do that. And I asked, like, why he is so adamant about filling that role. And he said he thinks he can be effective in it. He thinks he can really help teammates out with the pressure defenses throw against him. And again, in this one, really good. Got to 5 assists quickly. You would have liked for him to have run that number up a little bit more in the second half. And of course, again, White had to close this one out largely on the ball, as he did over the last 2 games, frankly. But, you know, some good moments from him on the drives, got fouled at different points. There was some really good cuts from him off White, too, so he played good on and off the ball. You know, there are probably some potential assists in there, as we talk about, but overall, I just think he's in a really good place right now. And it's the consistency, right? He's starting drives, and, you know, they're getting into multiple passing, sets, and 4 or 5 passes or multiple actions. And that's where I always have thought this offense looks its best. And that's something the team's talked about over the last couple of games, Sherrod. On the West Coast, Joe said they almost reinvented the offense to play a little bit faster, to get into the sets with 19 seconds on the shot clock at least. That's a conversation they had as a team to make sure they're playing with good tempo, to beat switching defenses, to get mismatches on the run. And Al Horford said at shoot-around yesterday, Jaylen set a tone in that sense, and he saw it kind of flow to other players. So if you ask me, Jaylen's the player of the month here. I know White's had a fantastic month. Tatum's had his moments. But Brown's the guy who has changed the dynamic of this offense in a way that's having them pick up the pace and play, frankly, some of their most efficient games we've ever seen from this team when you look at the Clippers and Kings games. You know, tonight, another good example, the second half yesterday. When this team plays faster, when they pass more, it just looks more smooth, and they're able to keep defenses off balance better and produce better shots. Rather than when they're just, stepping into shots. And Brown certainly did that in this one too, hitting the 3 threes in a row early. But he just had good feel for the offense here.
Yeah, a faster pace and tempo plays directly into Jaylen's hands. That's exactly when he's at his best. And to be frank and candid with you, Bobby, I love the fact that this becomes another tool that they throw in the tool bag of talent, because they can beat you half court, they can beat you up tempo, they can go big, they can go super small, they can beat you with someone not named Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. Guy Derek White comes up with big plays, and if they have to really go deep into the bench, Luke Kornet has the ability to give you 20. Brissett can give you damn near 10 rebounds in like 10 minutes. They become a bigger problem when they add the ability to play at a faster pace to the skills that they bring to the game. And I love the idea of Jaylen kind of leading that charge, because, again, Jaylen, he's trying to figure out, where do I fit into the grand scheme of championship basketball in Boston? What do I need to do to be that player? What can I give the game? And playing at a faster pace, a quicker tempo, it allows Jaylen to, I think, be more Jaylen. And Tatum can play that a little bit, but let's be honest, Tatum is in his bag when they're going half court, and he's got an ISO and some guys trying to guard him, and he either looking to attack off the dribble or he's looking to pull up. And now, courtesy of our good friend Sam I Am, Tatum every now and then we'll back a guy down and look to score, from the elbow or from the block. So long story short, playing at a faster tempo just makes them even more of a problem for teams when they're trying to play against the Celtics.
Sherrod, I'm glad you brought up Sam Cassell because, Bobby, I want to get your take on this, and we're going to get a clip in a few minutes about the one that we talked about before Bobby came on, about Jaylen Brown having nothing but great things to say about the revamped coaching staff, which obviously Joe Mazzulla has had some assistance here with Sam Cassell, Coach Lee, Charles Lee coming from the Milwaukee Bucks. How much does that play a part in the success early, or not even early, right? 20 plus games into the regular season. What would you say, Bobby? Like, how much is that playing a part?
I think it helps guys be comfortable, certainly. Jason's formed great comfort with Sam, and Sam's been able to push him in a way that maybe past assistant coaches haven't been able to when you look at the post-ups. I think Charles really smoothed in that transition for Drew coming over, which was fitting.
Definitely.
And then you just have different good combinations all the way down the line. I know DJ McClay, who's been here since Ime got hired, has worked with Chris Stapps, and all the way down the line. You got Phil Pressey and Emil and some of these other guys working with the younger players. So this is a really good staff. There's no doubt about it. The defense this year, I think especially it shows in that sense. You definitely have different guys focusing on that, while Joe, as you imagine, really hones in on the offensive side of the ball. This coaching staff's been awesome, I feel like. And you do wonder, Sherrod, as we always ask here, does a season like this, the success they're having, lead these guys to other opportunities once this year ends? Charles has been up for Detroit and other spots. I'm sure he's glad he didn't take Detroit or didn't get that opportunity after what's gone on there. But Chauncey, he's been waiting for a long Sam Cassell has been waiting on that opportunity for a long time. He's interviewed for a bunch of different positions. And then, who knows, guys even deeper on the roster, I'm sure, have some aspirations eventually to reach the next level. Phil Pressey coming in this year from Missouri. So it's been awesome to see. I think last year, for all the criticism we had of Joe, and it was right.
Rightfully so.
The excuses.
A la Marcus Smart.
The excuses were valid too. It was a very strange situation with that staff and just how it kind of deteriorated as the year went on and guys went different ways, especially once the year ended. So to have guys committed, to have guys with experience, championship experience in Lee's case, Cassell winning it as a player and being in so many different spots as a coach, when they brought him in, Sherrod, I remember Doc saying last postseason, he's the only coach who's in the offensive meetings and the defensive meetings for us. So he covers a wide range of expertises here, and I'm sure Joe's really been able to offload a lot to those guys. Even the assistant covering the challenges, Matt Reynolds, their record's impeccable in those challenge spots this year, so he deserves some credit too.
Across the board, yeah.
And I would, and another assistant I throw in that mix is Tony Dobbins, who works. He's worked with Jaylen. He's
Great
worked
point.
with
I forgot him. Yeah,
Dobbins.
Tony could. I mean, and when you
he's
look
got
at
ups too. He's got athleticism too.
Just compared to you, we all got ups and we all got hops. Another story, another day.
That's what's up, Sherrod.
It is. The thing about
Tony, throwing the shot in there. All right, cool.
When I talk about Sam Hauser and just what he's done, Tony has worked with him on his game, particularly at the defensive end, and you can see Sam's a different player. And again, that's just one of the many examples of this coaching staff figuring out what they need to do to amplify the talents and strengths of the players. And it's coming together in a way that has put the Celtics in position to be the best team in the NBA.
No doubt. I mean, it's just it's a culture thing for sure. I mean, if you ask me, and you're seeing that because when you again, we've been saying this for weeks now, when guys who aren't accustomed to getting minutes are ready, I just think that's a testament of the coaching staff and what the team's about and the culture.
Absolutely. And I'm just curious, Bobby, we've talked about a lot of folks today, but Derek White is a guy that we find a way to keep coming back to. Seems every damn game.
Bobby got mad because I didn't put him on a top 10 favorite Celtics of all time. I'm like, he's still a little early, but he has been balling.
Me and Josue had a conversation at dinner before the game, and
top 10 favorite Celtics all time.
I gave him 10 because he's in my top 5.
And Sherrod, remember, this is like I'm not saying like Bird. I'm not saying, you know what I mean. I'm saying guys
you've watched.
Yeah, I'm not gonna put Havlicek in there. Like, I didn't watch the guys.
And Josue's watched more guys than me, so a lot of great players. So I gave him 10. he's probably not in Josue's top 5. So I was like, all right, he'll squeeze him in at 10. And he went Marcus Morris over Derek White.
He's had more time. He had more time in Boston.
Yeah, and the thing,
it's probably pretty close at this point.
It's cool. Well, if you're talking about just favorite Celtics, just in general, forget about stats, forget about championships,
right, exactly.
Just favorite Celtics, then I could see a case for Derek White being in that mix. I could. But
he's knocking
Marcus
the door.
Morris,
he could be knocking.
Right, Marcus Morris is a guy that again I can't think of him and not think about what happened when they played Philadelphia and he 2-hand shoves Ben Simmons right in front of the ref, and neither the ref or Ben Simmons did
he was an awesome Celtic. Yeah. I don't know if he was the top 10 though.
He was doing that 3-0.
He was also one of those guys that was in Tatum's ear earlier, just kind of giving him some guidance and advice and things like that.
Do you have your top 5 on hand, Sherrod?
I mean, and also
top
too,
5
and too, Sherrod. You know, this is recent, so this is someone that also gave me some great one-on-ones and some great articles back in the day. So obviously that played a part as well. But yeah, you asked me my favorite players, so yeah, Marcus Morris. Yeah.
Oh, my top 5 is easy. It's easy. I got Paul Pierce. I got Kevin Garnett.
Yeah,
I got
Isaiah. We're on the same page.
I got Isaiah Thomas.
Okay, he was 5 for me.
I've got probably, and you'll laugh at this one, but I just love him. Jared Sullinger. Jared Sullinger is one of he's in my top 5.
Really?
Yeah, I liked him, and my 5th guy would probably be Al Horford. Actually, be Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart. I can't have a top 5 without Marcus Smart.
Okay. Josue's top 10. Pierce, Garnett,
that's my top 10.
Ray, Rondo, and then Isaiah coming in at the top 5. Antoine, Tatum, Horford, Smart, Morris. So not only was White snubbed, Jaylen Brown was snubbed as well.
I mean, Morris is probably up for grabs in the next couple of years, but right now, he rounds out my 10.
Morris is borderline. He's like, if at best, he's like maybe 9 or 10 for me.
But he's there.
White,
okay.
I think Derek White, man, it's hard not to have him in your top 10, man. Just favorite. Forget about stats and championship. Just favorite dudes on the team.
Yeah, for real.
He's just a good dude, man.
And remember when he came into Boston too? He was like he had that rep as like a hothead, and people weren't quite sure what happened in Phoenix, and then it was like a complete 180 of that impression that some people had for him. You know?
I was cool with him. I mean, he's a North Philly dude. They operate differently than most.
They're different, yeah.
And some of my best friends are from North Philly, so I kind of got him from the jump.
Yeah, they're different.
I get it.
My top 5 are probably Horford. In no order here: White, Smart, Brown.
Someone just said Antoine invented Missoula ball. Facts. I'll go out on a limb and say if I were to ask Joe Missoula, Walker's probably in his top 5. Okay, you got to remember, Missoula, he's from that certain age. He grew up in New England. He remembers that era of Celtics basketball. But sorry, go ahead, Bob.
White, Brown, Smart, Horford, and then you definitely have to go Isaiah to round that out. And then, you get your KGs and Pierces right in that mix too. If I was going to get all the way out to 10, you'd start getting to your Kornets. But
oh gosh, okay,
we'll save that for another time.
Okay.
Bobby, don't you dare. Let's see where everybody else's top 10 are. Let us know in the comment section. Top 5. Some people are already doing it right now. In the meantime, let's turn to what Jaylen Brown had to say before we got into that top 5, top 10 conversation. What he had to say about the coaching staff and the impact they've made this season.
In terms of the coaching, it seems like there's less kind of, I'm going to use the word structure, but I don't know if that's the right word. Like do this, do that, and more see the game, approach the game in a mental way, and do what you guys do best. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think Joe is encouraged us to all think the game, for sure. Like he's put an emphasis on that offensively, seeing where the mismatches are, seeing where how the teams are guarding us, and like really making our front 5 think the game, be the smartest players on the floor, which I think is we're being able to benefit from. So credit to Joe. He's definitely emphasized that. And then defensively, I think that we got so much versatility. I think it goes the same kind of thing on the defensive side, making the right reads, empowering us to see the game and make decisions that make sense, but be the smartest kind of players and team on the floor every single night. And I think this year for majority year, we've been the smarter team.
Facts. Those are facts.
Facts, Jaylen. Spin
They
facts
have
up
been
there on that podium.
They have been a smarter team. I mean, and to me, smart teams know how to find ways to win when you're not your best. Smart teams find ways to compete when you don't feel like competing. I mean, I to play an overtime game and then to turn around and play a better team the next night than the one that took you to overtime and still find a way to win. It says a lot about just where they are from a mental toughness standpoint. And Jaylen, the way that this team navigates from one game to the next, there really does feel as though there's a elevated level of thought put into how we're going to get it done tonight. That I don't think was necessarily the case last season, not to the extent that we see now.
I just think it's also an extension of what they've been doing with the film study. I just feel like that's a big part of it as well. Like all the players have really bought into that, and not only the approach, but the proof, right? I mean, Joe Mazzulla talking about pulling out clips during halftime in certain games when he feels like it's necessary. I just think that's a good thing about this team, and I feel like the players are all on the same page in that regard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, we'll see. We'll see if this thing keeps going. I mean, with the Celtics going on another 5-game winning streak, still undefeated at home, and they're going to stay that way going into the new year. Next game is against the San Antonio Spurs. And then they have a really, really tough one, or at least in my opinion, something I think is going to be a really good game against the Oklahoma City Thunder out there in OKC. But fellas, final thoughts as we head into the weekend.
We will see more Kornet.
Yeah, I was thinking you're gonna say some shit like that. Like it was like you were fighting back. You're like, should I say it? And once you started smiling, I was like, oh, here it comes.
Well, you know what's the great part about tonight, Josue, and I think you said it. They both played well, Luke and Keita, and having both as options is a strength. There's no lack of room for depth here, and obviously, if your bench continues to play well, and it is right now, and it really has for most of this year, you're not in a situation where you're pressured to make deadline additions like, the Mike Muscala one last year, which really didn't work out. So they're going to be in a position of strength going into the deadline where if there's opportunities to add, awesome. If not, I really think they like the second unit that they have here. Pritchard's playing well. Hauser, slumping a little bit right now, but still at that 40% mark from three. So not really. And Kornet coming on strong here, and Keita becoming a guy that this coaching staff believes in alongside Brissett now. I thought Brissett, again, you mentioned him, Josue, really, really good in this one. And even that early play where he passed up a layup inside to get Brown open three in the corner, just great plays up and down this game.
Yeah, I mean, this was, I think, a blueprint of what you should do when one of your top or two or three of your top players are out. Those guys who get an opportunity to play more minutes than they usually do, make the most of it. Don't just do what you do for the 5-6 minute stretches you normally get. Understand that you're going to get 10, 15, 20 minutes and do more than you would normally do because they're going to need that when you got major holes in your lineup that aren't available. It was great to see pretty much every guy who plays limited minutes, who got a little more burn, step up and play their game and do some of the things that we haven't seen them do to the extent that they're capable of. So, Luke, to me, he was the flag bearer for that second unit of guys to make the most of their opportunities. And again, they're going to need this at some point, probably for a few more games at some point between now and the beginning of the playoffs. And to Bobby's point about the trade deadline, I think you're right, Bobby. I think they're very comfortable going into the playoffs with the group they got now, because I think their sense is that if they're healthy, there's not a team that can beat them in the best of 7, and that's ultimately what it comes down to. Do you have a team that's built to win 4? And they do.
Yeah, and they of course have an open roster spot to sign Keita eventually.
Right.
If they decide to do that, that's true. That's true. Are you concerned about Porzingis, his health-wise?
No, I'm not.
Same. Bobby?
I would be more concerned. Well, go ahead, Bobby. You got it.
What'd you say, Josue?
Are you concerned about Porzingis' on the health front?
No. I think at this point they've convinced him to take the back-to-backs off. He wants to play every night. But at this point, especially after that strain, I think they have a good out to rest him in these spots. And they've done it 3 times in a row now. I don't think it's ideal to rest him and Horford together like they did tonight here. You probably want to stagger that a little bit going forward. But they saw a game where Kornet and Cater could suffice here. And, man, my Raptors, Sherrod, they are not in good shape.
Don't worry, Bobby.
There might be a trade coming
together,
on the pipe.
They won't be together long, Bobby.
I was going to
Don't
say,
worry.
speaking of trade season, they might be that phone.
That one could shake up the East a little bit. I still think Siakam's really good. I was saying that to Josue pregame, and he ended up with how many in this one? He was just getting off hook shot after hook shot.
Second half.
27, 5, and 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good game.
And he's in the last year of his deal, so, I mean, he's very attractive, on the trade front.
Yeah, he's trying to see what's up, what's good, what's outside of Toronto. But anyway, Celtics beat the Raptors 120-118. Now on a 5-game winning streak, and now 16-0 at TD Garden. That's gonna do it for us in the Celtics postgame show. Sherrod Blakely, Bobby Manning. I'm Josue Pavon, guys. We appreciate you guys checking in with us on a Friday night after a Celtics win, 120-118. Once again, it's your final score. Stay tuned for Garden segments, of course, from Garden Report segment, I should say, from Bobby and I, and plenty of more content on our YouTube channel and as well as CLNSmedia.com. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you guys next time. Have a great weekend. Happy New Year to everybody. I know we still have one more game in the new year against the San Antonio Spurs.
Josue, don't end the year too damn quick. Now, we still got one more.
But in case, in case people don't check in with us, stay safe out there. But it should be fun. New Year's Eve, Celtics, Spurs, one last game for 2023.
That's right. That'll be a fun show. I know Jimmy's not going to be on that one.
He might. Who knows?
That would be a load management game for Jimmy.
We'll
he's going to have quite a load to manage.
Let's get some FanDuel odds on that one. I'm betting no.
Let's get some odds on that one. All right, we'll see. Tune in and find out. How about that, guys? Tune in and find out, everyone. But once again, thank you for tuning in. It's been the Celtics postgame show, and that's going to do it.
Luke.
See you guys next time.
O'Shea, can you see?
Just shout out Luke. Jeez Louise. See you guys. Have a good night.
Out. Oh, goodness. Luke. All right, people.
Ahmed probably walked away.